Mr. Nogam.
All right, so we are starting in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
I think you're welcome. Yeah. So welcome everyone. My name is Bukola Shonuga. And this forum here is about the election in Nigeria, the imminent election in Nigeria that we're hoping does not get volatile, but things are really chaotic right now. But as I said in the intro, I'm just gonna read a little bit from the intro. So Nigeria has witnessed many crossroads since its independence in 1960 and is now at a breaking point. The country is reported to have the largest population of youth in the world. Over 33.6 million of the estimated 270 million are between the ages 15 and 35. Nigeria has the highest unemployment rate at 42%, the highest inflation in sub-Saharan Africa, and more than 80 million Nigerians live on less than $1 a day, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The international community view the percentage of the youth and the size of the country as a boundless opportunity to expand Nigeria's capacity and position the country as an economic hub in Africa and globally. But sadly, that has not been the case. At this breaking point, there is serious concern that Nigeria's fragile democracy may be facing an uncertain future due to a series of successive security, political, and economic crises. This Zoom meeting organized by Beyond Remittance Group, BRG, leading up to the imminent presidential election on February 25th in Nigeria, offers the opportunity for Nigerians in the diaspora and Nigerians at home to dialogue on the future of Nigeria. And welcome everyone on that note. So I have my colleagues on this line, and we also have a couple of candidates that are actually running for election in Nigeria, members of the Nigerian diaspora community in America. We're at a breaking point, really, as we speak now. So what I would like to also actually underscore is that this conversation we're having, we're planning to approach these from two, how do I put it? Two angles, right? Some of the people I have on the line in Nigeria, they have been in Nigeria for a while now. They can give us some perspectives, also real-time, report on what they're experiencing in Nigeria as we speak. And also the international community, there are reports from the international community that, and I'm going to read one of them. Nigeria is a failed state. That's a declaration by Foreign Policy report. And there's another, just give me a sec, please. Okay. According to political theory, the government's inability to thwart the Boko Haram insurgency is enough to diagnose Nigeria as a failed state, but there are many more symptoms. At a bare minimum, citizens expect their states to keep them secure from external attack and to keep them safe within their borders. The bargain that subjects long ago made with their sovereign was being kept from harm in exchange for allegiance and taxation. Actually, I'm so sorry. That's not what I meant to read. Just give me 1 second. Okay, this is what I meant to read. And this is also from, what publication is this? I can't find it right now, but it speaks directly to what we are here to address. 80 or 90 United Nations members a week. Weakness consists of providing many, but not all, of essential public goods, the most important of which are security and safety. If citizens are not secure from harm within national borders, governments cannot deliver good governance, the essential services that citizens expect to their constituents. So that's the state of affairs in Nigeria in terms of safety and security, number one. But I really would not want to lead that we start with that perspective of the international community, international agencies, which are actually, fact-based evidence concerning what's been happening in Nigeria, the trajectory, downward spiral trajectory in the last decade or so. But what I would like to start with is to hear from my diaspora brothers and sisters on this line. Paul Adetunji, Paul, you are on the ground in Nigeria. What I would like to have you guys do, please introduce yourself. Those of you that are on this line, can you just please introduce yourself? Paul, can we start with you, please? And then we can go in order. It doesn't have to be in order. Anyone can just jump in after. Paul, can you hear me? Okay, can anyone else go ahead? If Paul is struggling with audio or something. Anyone else can jump in, please. Just tell us who you are and where you are joining from.
My name is Kola Falobi. Actually in Maryland. Joining this morning from Perry Hall, Maryland.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
I am Dr. Leke Oshipito. Actually, I'm based in the United States. I'm based in the state of New York and in the city of Albany. So I hope this meeting is going to be a meaningful brainstorming.
I hope so. Thank you for joining.
You're welcome.
Hello, my name is Mr. Lee Karim. My base of residence is in Ohio, but temporarily or for the meantime here in Michigan. Been a part of the Nigerian diaspora community for quite a while. This BRG initiative, as championed by Ms. Shonuga, is of an interest to me. And as a diaspora Nigerian, I'm very much interested in what is going on in the country. I may not be able to be there, but of course the interest is there. And if there's a way that I can make a difference, I would certainly like to be a part of that positive change that the country so badly needs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Paul, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Paul Adetunji, formerly of New York. In Nigeria, I'm in Bayelsa State in particular, for Federal University of Otueke Legal Services. I'm glad that your opening captured the situation in Nigeria. It is tense. It is, to say the least, of concern to everyone who wishes Nigeria well. The recent attempt to change the currency has been a fiasco.
Can you hold that thought a little bit, just for a second?
Okay, sure.
We're just doing like your introduction right now. So
Sure.
Next, anyone else that I see? Ms. Adetunji, you're not saying anything. Can you introduce yourself, please? Your audio, I think you need to unmute.
Yeah, I saw that caller was trying to speak first, so I will.
Oh, I thought
yield, then I can go after.
Caller already did.
I introduced myself. We're still going through introductions.
We're doing introduction right now. Are you on jet lag?
Yeah.
You're in Nigeria, Miss
I'm not. Okay, I could go ahead. I thought you were still in the conversations and was paused or abrupted.
1 second.
So my name is Adetunji Adeleke. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear.
Am I breaking? Because I feel I'm...
No, you're not. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. My names are Adetunji Adeleke, and I am based in both Indianapolis, Indiana, and in OSUN in Nigeria. I've had to take that position for the past few years, being present in both nations because of my political campaigns and grassroots representation and movement. I am the candidate for Accord Party in OSUN West for the senatorial position. And it's a lot of work in progress. And I look forward to sharing some experiences and learning from others as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's all the people we have for now. So I also want to introduce again Honorable Lee Karim and Ms. Adetunji that just spoke. They're both members of the BRG, Beyond Remittance Group. We're the one organizing this forum here. And, you know, they've been really supportive. I've known them for many years, and we adopted a school in Nigeria, and they've been supporting, you know, the initiative financially and also in other ways, you know, because we believe BRG's premise is actually founded, BRG's founded under the premise that what should we do or what could we do beyond remittance, meaning beyond just sending money home. Are there other tangible ways that we can actually impact change and progress and prosperity in Nigeria? That's the premise of BRG. And my, you know, fellow members here and members of the board, I really appreciate you guys coming in and this forum, coming on this forum to have the dialogue. So Paul, that's actually where you left off. Paul, is actually a good way to start the conversation. The issue of the currency scarcity in Nigeria. Can you give some background on that, please? Because that's just, I mean, it could not happen in a civilized society. And another indication that Nigeria, it's not quite a civilized society when it comes to certain instances, such as the recent currency change in Nigeria. Paul, go ahead, please. Give us some background on that. There might be a lag because okay, have we lost Paul?
It looks like it dropped. Something dropped on his side, so
it's gonna log back in. Okay, so we continue the conversation when he until he, you know, sign back on. So the issue of the currency in Nigeria, I don't have all the details, so anyone can please weigh in. So that's actually a non-starter, because that before the election, the government or CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria, decided to change the currency of Nigeria. First off, as a member of the diaspora, I have some serious problems with that. In the sense that when we leave Nigeria, when we travel back and forth, we have currency that we bring with us, cash, so that when we get on the ground, we don't have to go to the bank. I mean, we're talking about security and safety issues. So you want to have money on you so that when you get home, you can do whatever you need to do. So by changing the currency and not providing any, you know, alternative provision, for instance, for people in the diaspora that wants to come and change their money and just be able to go to the bank and turn the money in and get the regular, I mean, the new currency, that's one issue. But the most serious issues is that people in Nigeria that have put their money in the bank, for instance, if I have 100,000 Naira in the bank and I then this currency exchange and I went to change and I need to go and change my money, they're not able to get their money out, or they're telling them that I can only give you 10% of what you put in. That's just insane. And that's just, you know, a tiny bit of the colossal problems in Nigeria right now leading up to this election. So can anyone pick up on the currency issue, number one? Anyone has more details that you want to add to that?
I think that the whole idea of changing the currency, it's the idea in itself is not a bad idea. I think it's bad timing. I think totally the timing that was decided to make this change, I think is totally bad. It's, you know, so it makes it a bad idea in itself, because there are two sides to, you know, to any idea. There's this side of strategizing and you know, creating the idea, and there's the other part of it, implementing the idea. I think the old way the idea is being implemented, or this after it's decided and all that, I think it's causing a lot of pain. So I'm not on ground, and I'm sure people that are on ground might be able to, maybe Paul and Mr. Adeleke might be able to, you know, put more focus on those things. From all that we see over the videos, over the internet, and what people are going through, I think it's totally chaotic right now.
And Mr. Adeleke, you've been in Nigeria. Again, you're a founding member of BRG. and you're actually one of the, or diaspora people that's stepping into Nigeria, taking on the how do I put it? You wanted to represent your community, represent Nigeria, represent the diaspora. So really commend you for leaving your comfort zone in America to run for election in Nigeria to represent your community. So we talk about currency. You and I have been, talking, behind off camera in other, in other conversations, and you're definitely in the thick of the currency and how it's affecting your campaign, affecting all the things you're trying to do in Nigeria. You could definitely please weigh in on that. What are you experiencing on the ground?
Thank you so much. Yeah, the experience on the ground has not been very nice about the currency change. Even I'll say that based on the announcements that they've made, can you hear me? I was already in some preparation mode for that. But Nigeria, you can never get enough of a bad situation. So the most important thing is that be always prepared for a bad situation and pray that that bad situation does not influence you terribly. Because what happens is that successive policies in different ways is not taking the interest of the common man into consideration. And that's part of the reason why someone like me is getting involved in Nigerian politics, that let's fight for the common man. This currency issue, believe me, I'll cite some examples and you can make some deductions from there. To pay for food in restaurant, we've had to transfer money to restaurant owners, and if they cannot get it, then you have to transfer another round of money. Sometimes you pay twice. They will give you a different account. Some money will hang, some money will come the day after, some money will come like 2 or 3 days after. That's part of the problem. The technology that backs the electronic transactions is not that effective, and it's being overtasked because many of those were designed as a support to legal tender. But now that system is being overwhelmed, even if it's been scaled, considering other factors like the bandwidth, the mobile bandwidth from the telephone operators. It's not always about whether banks have the capacity. What about the transport channel to make this work?
Right.
So you see errors, you see people losing money, you see people in the haste of making electronic transaction, crediting or debiting the wrong account. It just happened to us. We just paid 100,000 into an unknown account of the same name. Instead of Sterling Bank, was paid into Stanbic Bank, and there was just too much pressure. There's so much pressure. Though there are ways to correct some of these errors, but it puts people in pain. You see a long queue, but people are resilient. They are adapting to the situation. The government knows that they are making some mistakes. They are now coming with some palliatives. Yeah, we will now only take 200 out of the other money. Wow. It's not good. It's just like you are taking a small chunk just because from the observation in the electrical terrain, some people have some scores to settle between themselves in order to prevent money politics. If that is the goal, we should find better ways to do that. We should not do it in a crude way or at the detriment of the welfare of the society. So believe me, and I can tell you that what we are hearing, that may also fail. Why would that fail? Because people have found an antidote to not do this money politics through cash. They are already saying that it has actually upped the ante and it's made things even more difficult, or it's supposed to make things better for those of us that are coming in that we do not want to play money politics. We want to campaign and win. But the big boys are actually upscaling that down from what we are hearing. So the motive for which many people in the populace, though it's not expressly stated officially, seems defeated, At what expense? At the expense of the masses. So we should be able to do things better, form our policies and put the policies to test before it's been implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, I know you're having connection issues. Do you want to weigh in quickly on this topic before we go around? And I also realized that a couple of people are working today, and we appreciate you joining. So I want to get to you so we can get on to the other topics. But Paul, can you unmute if you're able to speak so that you can speak to this currency issue and what you're experiencing on the ground in Bayelsa State?
I think he just logged out. Maybe he's trying to log back in.
I see he needs to be mute. Yeah, that's another issue with Nigeria and connectivity in certain areas of Nigeria. So whenever it comes back in. So I really want to then throw this to the floor. I mean, things are really bad and chaotic in Nigeria right now. And people are just tired. People have had it. And they're going to the polls in a few days on Saturday. And they're afraid that their votes will not be counted. They're afraid that they're going to be once again disenfranchised. But I think that that country is bracing for a really, some sort of unrest if people's votes are not counted or if people are disenfranchised. So, Mr. Likarim, can you jump in, please? What are you hearing from your network, and what are your views on what's happening right now?
Well, my own concern, especially for some of us that support family members back home, when you send money, they get a dollar, but then they go to the bank to exchange it, and for 10,000 naira, for example, you have to pay 3,000 naira just to cash your money. It's ridiculous. It's outrageous. I don't know why the government is not addressing that. I think the gentleman that spoke earlier said something about the timing. I really don't think this has anything to do with timing. If the planning and implementation process was wrong, they're never, ever going to be a good timing. When they were putting this together, they knew that election was a few months away. They've had to postpone the rollout of the new naira, and then when they reached the deadline, the Supreme Court overruled them and extended the old naira as legal tender. My concern is, why is it that when you have fund in the bank, you have to pay to get your own cash? Admittedly, this same fund is being gets invested by the banking institution. Is the proceed not enough for them that they have to charge you 30% on the average of the percentage of what you withdraw from your own account? So for me, that is a major concern. The other issue of election coming up, of course, we're all concerned about what the outcome of that election would be. It's almost guaranteed that there will be chaos and there will be a lot of killing. So what is the government doing to minimize the likelihood of mass killing as a result of election? Because whoever wins, there will be the other party who feels that his candidates or his constituencies have been disenfranchised, so the outcome will not be perceived as being fair. Again, I'm just going back to the past history of Nigerian election. So those are my own concerns. But being here in the US, there's not a whole lot that I can do to affect change. And I'm glad that Honorable Adeleke is on this forum. I really commend his dedication, his effort really pray that he will be successful. We need people like Honorable Adeleke to do what people like us either unable or unwilling to do. It's a major sacrifice to decide to return to Nigeria and run for office. But at least if he's successful, we see him as an outlet to let our voice be heard and to implement policies that will be consistent with our own hopes and wishes and aspirations. So, Honorable Adeleke, I commend you. Best wishes on your campaign.
Mr.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Lekari. Very much appreciated.
Mr. Shikwiton, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah. Well, when I heard about the policy, I think which was rolled out probably, was it in October last year? Actually, I mean, I was happy about that situation when I had the Mayfield policy from the CBN because it's going to alleviate the problems of kidnapping and those who stashed, which is clearly, and I know those who stashed currencies, Nigerian currencies at home, on the ground. You see, but the public servants or civil servants, when they steal this money, they can't put it in the bank because now with the BVN, you can be tracked of whatever account that you have. And you're going to explain how you got that money. Instead of that, people like that, they stash money at home. In the past, they used the name of their children to do that. That is difficult with the BVN that was introduced while Emefiele was the governor of the CBN. He has done well into those areas. But at some point, because I was in Nigeria in December and I came back in January, things were still flowing. I was still with them happy that this policy will be materialized. But at some point, I think the problem they had was lack of preparedness in terms of implementation. If you want to do that, you need to have enough of new currencies that will be exchanged for the old ones. Even you already had target. You said, okay, you can only withdraw maybe 50,000 naira within a period. That's fine. After all, in America, if you go to the ATM, the maximum you can get in a day is $500. And I don't know if there's another machine that doles out more than 500. If you go to the bank in America, the moment you withdraw more than 5,000 now, right? They won't stop you. You got your 5,000, but you're already flagged. And while you were flagged, I mean, they monitor you. So I believe that I thought Emefiele has already prepared, had enough naira note. As Nigerians are going in, okay, this is your old note. Now we want to withdraw. Give us new naira. But they were not. They were not prepared, except they have other motive, which I cannot say at this moment. That I want to stop certain aspirants. I want to stop because of my money is changing hands, this and that. I don't want to go into that. But the point is, our people, the masses, why do you have to suffer them? Somebody wants to go to the bank to collect 10,000. Why can't they get 10,000 naira? Why can't they withdraw 5,000 naira? Why can't they withdraw 50,000 naira? Even some people want to withdraw 1,000 naira. Why can't they get 1,000 naira? You see, so that is the problem in our nation. You can't just sit, it's like a power decision. Okay, I decided that this is what we're going to do. I'll walk to the president. Hey, president, this is what I want to do. The president said, yeah, I'm with you. But the people in the Congress or whatever state assembly, they are not aware of anything. Even the Minister of Finance was not even aware. Okay? The Minister of Finance was not even aware. But what I'm saying now is the logistics too will be bad for this election coming up on Saturday. There will be poor logistics in that area because ability to move. You want to move ballot boxes or people want to move from one point to another. They got to move. One, you need money, I mean, to move. Two, the gas issue is there, petroleum or whatever, fuel problem is there. You know, it's not everybody that votes near their house, their homes. Some people still move a mile or 2 miles to go and vote. Some people still travel. From Lagos now, we have some people from the east that they register at home in the east. They want to go and vote at home. I mean, that's the way I knew and I heard about that, but they can't move. So those are logistics problems. And are we really sure that Saturday is going to be fruitful? Even if it is fruitful, there will be issues. So coming back to the currency aspect, I mean, Emefiele should admit his failure in that area. Okay, now the Supreme Court wants to address that issue, that Nigerians are suffering. Okay, can you allow this thing to extend to so that you prepare yourself to have enough new currency to be able to give to Nigerians? When you say Nigerians, either you are poor, you are rich, whatever, who cares? Nigerians. So that you'll be able to prepare. But no, they said no. And the commander-in-chief came out and said, oh, it's only 200 naira that they will be given. Why the Supreme Court of the land said this, and you went away against the Supreme Court of the land? Nah, that's not too good. But that means they have a target of this Saturday. If you say no, 200, then you have a targeted date that no, we have to do this. Don't be surprised after Saturday, you might hear that, oh, okay, they can be accepting both currencies. I mean, they can be accepting 200, 500, 1,000 until April.
Mr. Honorable, I'm sorry, I have to excuse myself. I have another meeting to attend to.
Thank you so much.
Good luck and best wishes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Adetunji, can you go ahead?
Yes, I want to first of all thank Mr. Osipiton for what he just said. He couldn't have said it better. As a lawyer, I find it a surprise, a shock that some Nigerians are encouraged to disobey the ruling or the order of the Supreme Court. That should not happen anywhere on earth. That should not happen in a democracy. There's no reason why the executive will want to minimize or undermine and disregard Supreme Court order. The Supreme Court, courts are the arbiter of fundamental rights. Particularly the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. So if you disallow the currency exchange to take place, what you are actually accomplishing is depriving people of their money, their resources without just cause. So the Supreme Court order should be allowed to stay so that the extension of the exchange continue. In other words, the exchange should be able to continue until everyone who have legitimate money is able to exchange them for new notes. There's a flaw, as Mr. Olupiton said from the beginning, a flaw in the exchange. I once worked for central bank, and there are branches, central bank branches or currency center in every state. They have a private jet with which they distribute currency. They call it currency movement, which meant that if you want to change currency, immensely, and those who are supervising him ought to print the equivalent of money in circulation that is legitimately in circulation and ensure that the share per capita of each state, depending on population, of course, less money will come to Bayelsa than money going to, say, Lagos because of the population share. They should have had those monies, those amounts ready in each state central bank branch or currency center before saying that the old currency will not be acceptable. So that the date of the exchange is flawless. The exchange is hassle-free. You take the equivalent money you have to your commercial bank, your commercial currency center to have the money you want. That wasn't done. So I don't know if this is a deliberate bungling, because I have to tell you that the US frequently withdraw notes and change notes based on the fact of mutilation. When currencies in circulation are mutilated, they are usually withdrawn without announcement. This can be done seamlessly. What has happened here in Nigeria, there's no excuse whatsoever. It shouldn't have happened. There should have been adequate planning, and the new money, the new currency should have gone to all central bank branches and currency centers And then commercial bank will approach currency centers and central bank branches. This shouldn't have happened. What has happened here? It's a bungling. I think it shows every level of Nigerian government cannot manage simple things. So they can't accomplish simple missions. That's what has happened here.
Well, why will have you, because I know your connection is, is kind of fluctuating and not reliable. Can you speak just, generally to the atmosphere, the political landscape in Nigeria right now? What are people feeling, and what is this election? What's going to happen with this election? What's the state of affairs?
I'm deeply concerned about the situation on ground. People are very tense. Again, begin with the currency exchange for new ones. People are not able to move. The poor people are suffering here, excruciating pain from the fact that they are not able to get from here to there. The taxi drivers are refusing old notes. Most merchants, everywhere you go, old notes are rejected. No explanation, no excuse, without apologies. That means that a lot of Nigerians are not able to do what they want to do in their daily life. So talking of voting, if you can't feed yourself, if you can't move from point A to point B, voting becomes secondary. That's one. Two, I also worry about the polarization between the regions and between the political parties. I worry that the risks are that there will be a sort of a three-way race and a deadlock that is between Atiku, Tinubu, and Obi. And Nigeria may be looking at people that the candidates are announcing themselves as winners, as gladiators from a different region. You might be looking at the situation that we saw in Afghanistan or Somalia. I'm deeply worried about that we are going to have an election that will end in a fiasco, just like this currency exchange that you have seen. The currency exchange is simpler than running an election. And yet, we are all witnesses now to what has happened with this currency exchange. And the election might be worse. I'm afraid of a civil war. I'm afraid of national disintegration as a result of the upcoming election, because the Nigerian populace are anxious and restive and desperate, and the levels of government are not doing their best to stem these concerns of fear or restiveness.
Thank you, Paul. I know that Ms. Adetunji, the candidate for Senate in Osun State, and also a founding member of BRG, Beyond Remittance Group. You want to say something? Please give me a second. I want to recognize Honorable Oladipo Oyewole Bobagun of Shimawa. Thank you. If you can hear me, sir, thank you for joining this meeting. I know you're in Lagos at an event in Lagos, but we'll come back to you. If you want to speak, unmute yourself. But for now, I'd like to go to Ms. Adetunji. Go ahead, please. You wanted to add to this discussion. Go ahead. Ms. Adetunji.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad. Oh, hello, can you hear me better now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Hello?
We can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm glad that we have an opportunity and a forum to hear our views on matters that affect the country and also our societies and our communities. Elections are not supposed to be a do or die affair. Elections are not supposed to stress the community. Elections are not supposed to impoverize, to make people impoverished. Elections are opportunities for people to express themselves in a good democracy. Why is our election becoming a time of hardship for our people? Even if there are any gains that this government has made in the past few years, I think they are undoing some of them because I feel they want to create a legacy. Some things, what is worth doing is worth doing well. And I feel this, even if it's well-intentioned, that there shouldn't be money politics, because that's the most justifiable reason for which we are seeing this, even if it's not officially announced. I feel the way it is done, it doesn't justify the means at all. The people are suffering. In fact, there could be sympathy votes for the people, the so-called people that these policies supposed to address. Because it's like, what's really behind all this? Why do I have to suffer because you don't want this person to win? And what we as people are reading between the lines, our leaders should know that they should be good examples for our people. The mood of the country is not good at all. It's not laughable. My people will say, Guru Reri. The street is not laughing at all. And that is not good. The number one role of any government is the welfare of their people. And if the government is partaking in hurting its people, it's a failure. I don't know those that advise our people. You can't be for, because you are playing power games, be hurting your people. And these are things that people have been doing with impunity. That's why they choose to do these and make announcements like that. To me, we need a government that will help change this as we move forward at all levels. I'm talking to the point of the fact that there is a rejection of the judgment of the Supreme Court is not a good precedent. And anything about Nigeria, if you say the sky is blue, people will argue. Some will argue for and against because it's in their own interest. We must have a common ground of what is good. If we don't have a common value, we will never be able to be united and achieve something meaningful together. Some people, because this will favor them for their own selfish gains, will choose to support what doesn't favor the broader interest of the people. And that's what's been happening successively over various regimes. So we should be able to be united, because in other places, this can become an impeachable offense against the president of the nation. The president can't just do whatever he likes or just use the executive branch of government the way he likes. There should be proper checks and balances. And the parliament should be strong enough to be able to exercise their role, to put the president in order. And this is not right. If the president is turning into a dictator, that's the way I'm looking at it. When the judiciary gives a verdict and you are going against it, when the parliament is not able to talk because of ethnic sentiments, all these reasons are not good for our nation. And it's putting a legacy of impunity in place. And we must work against that. The head of the nation, the commander-in-chief, must set a good example. He is the leader and he should be able to show us the right path. If there are anybody that are advising the president wrongly, they should cease and desist in the interest of the people of the nation. There is nothing they will gain from this. If it's at the benefit of their ethnic group, of their brotherhood, or their pocket, they should cease from this, because they are impoverishing the nation. A country that is so wealthy is now being listed as a poverty capital in the world. What are we gaining from that? Let's stop this madness. Thank you.
Thank you. So I see Honorable, I lost my thought for a second. Oyewole Obagwo of Shimawa, and it's actually board chair in Nigeria, BRG's board chair in Nigeria. Thank you, sir. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you.
It's such a pleasure to be associated with this.
But before you say something, sir, let me just read breaking news in Nigeria that was just sent to me. Heavy protests rocks Ogun State as hoodlums burned banks over Nigeria. Violent protests erupted in Shagamu area of Ogun State on Monday as protesters registered their displeasure over the scarcity of new Naira notes. Politics Nigeria reports that the protesters barricaded the road, attacked and burnt Union Bank, First Bank, and Keystone Bank branches in the area. The ugly incident has halted commercial activities in the once busy area as shops are now closed and the road deserted following fear that the protests may escalate. Sir, this is right in your town. So I know you were in Lagos earlier. Can you please tell us, what are you hearing? You know, we're so happy to have you. What's going on?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. My take is that I saw this happening as far back as last week, because people are suffering. There is no new currency note being distributed in Shagamu. Banks in Shagamu were closed to customers outright, and people are suffering. There is no food in their homes. I mean, majority of the people who even go to the bank are people who earn money on a daily basis. They are traders. So when you push a people to a point, it's only normal that they will want to retort. And this is what we have on hand right now. The whole of Shagamu is burning. It is really burning.
Oh my God.
And people are running out of town, as far as I have been informed. The currency situation, as has been analyzed by previous speakers, is so appropriate, appropriate in the sense that government ought to have made adequate arrangements before embarking on currency swap or currency change. And when people are suffering, who are you then serving? The idea of governance is to make life comfortable for the masses, for everybody, for all citizens and all residents. So the Shagamu state of affairs today is what we are just witnessing. More will still come. And like one of the speakers earlier said, it is an event that may snowball into damaging our plan for Saturday, that is for the election. Without money, even INEC cannot conduct any election, reasonably well at this time. They need money for transportation, they need money for fuel, they need money for other logistics, and we ought to, be conscious of the need for all these things. I'll rest the case for now.
What about, thank you, sir. So what about this notion that this currency exchange that they implemented right before the election, that this was actually done to disrupt the election, that it was done to agitate people so that they can have a reason to cancel the election? I mean, one
of the contenders at the presidential level did say that it was planned, for his own downfall. That has not been defended and it has not been proved. So we do not know if it is what we should take hook, line, and sinker. But obviously, some logistics have not been put in place, and that is what is creating this problem. The way it's going to end, nobody knows for now.
Okay, so how did we get here? Nigeria has been trying to breathe for the longest now. And for those of us that have been in the diaspora for 40 years plus, we remember the Nigeria that was, and we remember the Nigeria that it is now, with so much potential, with majority of the population between the age of 15 and 35, young people. This is supposed to be a promising country, a promising future with so much resources. How did we get here?
Lack of management.
Bad leadership. Bad leadership.
Lack of management. Lack of effective management. That is what we are suffering. Lack of effective management. Please,
leadership. Yeah.
To the other gentleman.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, I was just saying it is symptomatic of bad leadership. If you are a head of department and you always come to work late, you cannot know your employee who is punctual and not punctual or who is absent. So what we have here is the leadership or the management of Nigerian affairs have always too frequently been in the wrong hands. And so whether it's a currency change or managing elections, the Americans say you cannot give what you don't have. So if you don't have good competencies, if you don't have management skills, if you don't have organizational skills, you cannot manage anything, not even a farm. So that's what they've indicated or demonstrated by how they've bungled the currency exchange. And I fear that might also be how the coming elections will go. And it worries me to no end. An election should not be difficult. We are all registered card PVC carrying citizens. And in knowing that you have enough polling booths for, depending on the population of the locality, it shouldn't be difficult. It's a simple thing to do. But as one of the commentators here mentioned, it appears this is planned obsolescence, that there's a deliberate effort maybe to scuttle. I have no proof of this. I have no facts or evidence to support it, but it does appear as if there's a deliberate effort to scuttle the election so that all these needless mistakes, all these needless fiasco are being orchestrated just so that the election will not hold or the election will end in a deadlock. Even at this point, I'm afraid of a military coup, that this would be an excuse to say, oh, currency exchange went bad, the election went also terribly, and so democracy is not working for us. That is not far-fetched at all. I fear that could happen, that the coming election will be a deadlock, and it will give excuses to wrongdoers, evildoers, who will set us way, way, way back. We should all be concerned. We should be talking to people we know to avoid a catastrophe in Nigeria. At this point, I'm like the diaspora at this forum, worried about what could happen here. I've lived in Nigeria since living in New York 12 years ago. I'm now almost in regret of leaving, quote unquote, my comfort in New York to return to Nigeria. I was so confident, I was so optimistic that I'll be able to, in the university environment, illustrate good behavior, good standard, democratic practices, best business practices, best legal practices from my profession. But it turns out that everyone, including in the university system, are so steep in corruption, are so steep in bad ways. Each time I'm talking about best practices, everybody looking at me as if I was speaking. Everybody looking at God, he has come again, to lecture us about how not to take advantage of students, how not to ask for bribe for final year students, how not to do the wrong thing. People get upset just hearing me say these things in management meetings or departmental meetings. This is the situation in Nigeria, and I'm really, really worried about the forthcoming election.
But Paul,
I already said,
Paul, thank you so much. I was talking about how did we get here? On this line, on this forum, we're multi-generational, right? You can look at the age bracket from Otumba, I don't want to put a number to the age, but I'm just trying to say that we have witnessed Nigeria from the 50s and 60s and the 70s and 80s, this generation here. So we're at a breaking point. Nigeria has been declared a failed state by the international agencies. So where do we go from here? What about the youth? It's very clear that people's votes don't count, because if people's votes do count, the youth are ready to have a different Nigeria. They're ready to step in to lead a country that they desire, to be able to have a fair shot of life. But that hasn't happened. So everything we're hearing is a disaster. So where do we go from here?
May I?
Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Well, that's a very good one. My position is that we need a good manager. We need the right man for the job. Nigeria has everything that we need. Resources, in terms of human resources, in terms of
good weather,
of mineral resources and what have you. But we need somebody, like Mr. DJ said, we need somebody who will be able to put all these things together and make it work. We have another opportunity now to elect a leader, to elect a manager. And every attempt from what we have seen has been scuttled. We hope that it will not go far enough to damage the whole process, but we need a change of management, and we need the right man on the seat to be able to move us forward, to coordinate all the affairs and let us make progress. That's my stake.
Yeah, and Nigeria cannot be allowed to fail, because the repercussions, around Africa. I mean, this is the largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa, and also with the international community, it would affect everything: international relations, trade relations. Nigeria cannot be allowed to fail. But the way things are going now, we're not really sure where come Friday. Number one, we're not even sure if the election will take place on Friday, and if we did took on Saturday rather, but would they even allow the will of the people to win? Would they count the ballot? Would they allow the right winner to take over? I mean, to become the president of Nigeria?
During this discussion, I've heard the word repeated often: logistics, logistics, logistics. INEC has to have money, have the cash to move their ballot papers and ballot boxes and their staff to the different polling booths and locations. And the citizens whose registration location is different from where they are resident, or even if you're resident in a particular town, your polling booth might be miles away or kilometers away. You need to transport there. So if you have not been able to change your money to new currency or new notes, and if there's also this threat of violence everywhere, I wonder how enthusiastic the average voter will be in any state to go through all these hassles to manage the logistics of getting to the polling booth in the first place. There's hunger in the land. There's desperation in the land. Then the ineffectiveness and inefficiency of government at all levels. That's where we are. We are close to busting at the seam in a bad way. I worry for Nigeria. And next Saturday I think, it's a pregnant moment for all Nigerians to contemplate. And I hope it goes well. I really worry, though.
Right, and I'm going to go to Mr.
I am scheduled to be at another meeting, but can I take some quick feedback and questions so that I can take them all together?
I was actually going to go to you because you, again, we commend you for stepping in, for stepping in, for wanting to represent your community, for wanting to go and speak to these young people and give them, hope for the future. So you are the future. You are one of those people that we salute you, and we hope that you succeed, right? So what are you hearing in your community? Number one, I want to ask you, what inspires you, again, to leave your comfort zone in America, to want to go and run for Senate in Osun State? Number one, are you there? Did you drop out? Okay, I think you just, I was asking that what inspired you to leave your comfort zone in America to want to go and represent your community in Osun State? And what are your policy priorities? I mean, in other words, what's happening. The population of Nigeria, again, is majority of young people, about 70%, and that's reflective across Nigeria, not just in Osun State. I'm sure that's the case. And you've been talking to a lot of these young people, right? So what separates you from the other candidates? What inspires you to want to run? And what is your number one policy priority? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Buki. I will take all those questions in succession before I run to my next meeting. Number one, people have been answering that, how did we get here? And how can we get out of where we find ourselves? Part of how we got here is because there is lack of trust amongst us. And that has brought a lot of selfishness within us that has actually degenerated with other factors at play, including corruption and greed and ethnic sentiment that is driving us crazy, whereby people have become so much impervious to the pains of others except their own. That is what got us here. And we can correct that by beginning to build trust amongst ourselves again. The trust to bring us back from this collateral damage. It's a mutually assured destruction game as we are going right now. And even for those that think they may win, they may not. This is not going to end well for any one of us.
Wow.
And Nigeria disintegrating and getting into wars or whatever it is again is not good for Africa, it's not good for the world. Let's set aside our pecuniary interests. Let's set aside the me attitude. Let's change our mindset. It's a mindset problem. and we need to start building trust based on truth, because we have set aside the truth and we are looking for wanton ways to disguise the realities of the problem. If there are, and one thing I've noticed in successive generation is that we carry baggages over time of why we should not work or hate the other people.
Right.
And it's something that corrodes even the good ones. Many people don't want to do that, but when they are impacted, people have done that to them more than once, twice, or thrice, they give up. They are like, if you can't beat them, join them.
Right.
Let's begin to set a new mindset amongst ourselves. And that's why I like that some of the parties are coming up with modus operandi to ensure that there is minimal money politics intervention. But at the end of the day, how can we do this right? Sometimes government should let the people correct the problems. Wielding a big stick, thinking they know all, creates more problems sometimes. Solutions should be grassroots. And in terms of policy, I came into this situation because the poverty is too much. Imagine they are calling us the poverty capital of the world. And even one person in Nigeria was saying that he has more money than the state of OSUN State. I'm not happy that. I'm like, there is so much wealth in OSUN. The people just need to harness those resources. The young people need to be encouraged. The young people need to be catalyzed to be able to do things. And we are bringing things in to help them. We're even doing one empowerment program this Thursday to lead into opportunities for them to hand money in foreign exchange. We want to make sure that wherever we have been fortunate to reach, or we are still going, we are able to pull others along. So when we change our mindset that we should be our brother's keepers, it will change the whole scenario. And that's the reason why we are here, to make a change, starting one step at a time. But if you are trying to do that without the political will, you may not get the desired results. And that's why I'm stepping into politics. That's why I'm putting all into it. Perchance, we will be very successful, and we are working hard, and we are very hopeful. Let the people believe us, and we will make change one step at a time.
Yeah, thank you. Before you leave, wait quickly. What do you, I mean, regardless of what happens on Saturday, and we're praying for you, pushing for you, and we're here to support you in whichever way we can. Do you believe that the will of the people would win on Saturday? Do you believe that people's vote will be counted fairly? From your vantage point in OSUN State where you're running, you've been on the ground now for a while. Do you really have the confidence that people's will be honored?
Thank you for saying that.
Through the ballot.
Yeah. I think we should take it one step at a time. We should first see whether there will be elections.
Yeah, that's
then we will see whether there will be credible elections. And after the credible elections, we will see whether there will be credible results and outcomes. Outcomes in the sense that, look at what just happened in OSUN State and the tribunal ruling, which is being appealed now by the current governor. People felt they have a new government that will bring a different perspective to governance,
right,
to how affairs are being run. But some people that have been there still felt like it's our birthright, and we will use every means possible and try to discredit the process they all signed into. I've not, in an environment like United States, which we are part of, you cannot say you put a process in place and you all sign up on it, and you now say that, oh, one part was not good, hereby it nullifies the intent. It's either you nullify the entire process. People signed up that this was the right thing that came from this machine, that it was okay. Then you went to the tribunal and start saying something else. It's making people not to believe in all arms of government again, that even if they vote and even the results are counted, would the tribunal not change it? And look at how a person that took the fourth position now became number one. And it's because people are not complaining and protesting when they do it once, and they would like to do it again. So people must rise up and reject bad governance. People must rise up to reject laws that are being selectively applied in favor of certain people to entrench themselves and to hold the nation to ransom. And the more we have younger people that come with a different mindset in governance at all levels, that will begin to make a change. And that's why someone like us, we are coming, and we even want people that are even younger than us to get involved more and come with a new mindset, because the future will be better for them and upcoming generation. The mistakes of the past that have been made, maybe by our elders, and we are also adding to that. But let's stop it. Let's say the buck stops here, like the president should say. And from now going forward, let's chart a new course. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we were here because, again, you are at the grassroots level, and really, and you and I have talked for a while now, and I really mean this. And I want to say this again for the record, that we are here to support what you're doing going forward, regardless of the results on Saturday, because the youth, that is the future of Nigeria. And if we start from the grassroots level, at least we win one state or one local council. That is the place to start. And we must not lose focus on that whatever happens on the national level, let's take these baby steps and let people's will, be honored, and let their vote count, right? We wish you all the best. Please stay safe, right?
Thank you. We'll do our best. God help us.
Yeah.
Thanks all.
You're welcome. Kola, you're there. I think you just signed up. Paul, do you want to, you and I also have been talking for a long time, Paul, and you, like you said, you lived in the United States for decades.
I hope you can excuse me to go to my
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you. Please stay safe. Really, please. We need you. Please stay safe.
Thank you. God will protect me. Thank you.
So, Paul, I was saying that you lived in the US for decades, right? And we were born around the same period, right? And you were raised in Nigeria. We live in the US, we go back and forth. Now you relocated to Nigeria. And you're very, you're very conversant with politics and what's happening on the ground. You're always writing about it and reporting. So we really we trust your perspective on this, because a lot of times they're factual. They're not just something that you're just making up. You're an expert in this area. So what about the youth, Paul? It's not that everyone is talking about management and good governance and having the right person in power. I don't think the case is that Nigeria did not want a good person in power. It's not that they do not desire to elect someone that will serve the interests of the people. That has not been the case. The case has been that the system has just, failed to
become bastardized. Yes,
exactly. So can you speak to that? Honorable Babago, Oyewole is back to join us now for a few minutes. I hope the service is to be stable and allow you to stay a little longer. So, Paul, let's sort of like dissect that a little bit, the past and how we got here, right?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Here's the thing: when I was growing up, Awolowo ran to be president of Nigeria, and he had a message. The message resonated with voters. For those of you who are too young to know or remember, you saw cardinal programs. It had to do with agriculture. And wherever he went throughout Nigeria, this was the same message he repeated. The 4 cardinal programs, so-called. And it resonated with every voter. Everyone who encountered that man or his ideas appreciated them. And I want to tell you, my parents were paying 5 shillings a month for my primary school. And when I made sure that nobody paid for primary school, nobody paid for secondary school. So I'm trying to say here that current crop of politicians need to have the public to let the voters know that the political class have called deliverables. If you let people know they have a stake in the outcome in education, in public infrastructure, in public housing, and in agriculture. We import food. We're an agrarian nation that imports food. if you let the citizens across Nigeria know these things and campaign with them, and they see you mean it and you are vigorous, I'm very certain that this crop of current politicians that promise nothing will go away.
Paul, you're breaking, and I don't think there's anything you can do about it.
They will expire naturally. Members of the current political class, Atiku is. Oh, okay. I was just going to say that if you ask me what Atiku or Tinubu's deliverables are, what policies they're campaigning with, what they want to do if they were elected president, I couldn't tell you. And that shouldn't be. That shouldn't happen. It should be that if you're campaigning for president, there should be a key policy programs that you promise to pursue. And when citizens are voting for you, they are voting because of those policy promises. And when you become the president or governor or senator, those are the policy promises the citizens or the voters will be expecting you to deliver on. That's almost completely absent in Nigeria right now, almost completely, except maybe I don't want to be partisan, or I don't want to tell you who I'm voting for, except for one of them that appear to have logic in his head or engage in sequential thinking to the extent of actually saying what he will do if he's elected president. Most Nigerian politicians these days don't concern themselves with Awolowo type 4 cardinal programs or what are deliverable policies. So that's the thing. Everybody wants to be in political office. They want several cars and several girlfriends. I know what they will do to the average person. The voters should be demanding more. At my age, I should remind our listeners of Operation Wet here. That was the voters' disgust and rejection of politicians who were trying to scam them. You understand? So right. That kind of dissatisfaction is about to happen again nationwide, a similar thing like Operation Wet here, because of the fact that the electorates have become aware that a lot of the political figures are scammers. They have no plan to do anything. They have no party programs or policy or program positions to a better Nigeria. They're suffering in the land. I live here. I see it every day. If you go to any bank now, you hear, I'm sure everybody on earth have heard that banks are being burnt. That's out of frustration.
Right, Paul, thank you so much. You were talking about Operation Wet, and that's part of
the sun for 10 hours. Hello?
Go ahead, finish that thought. Finish that thought, yes, okay. Go ahead.
So I was just saying that there's so much suffering in the land, and desperation usually produces violence or disorder. And that's what I fear will multiply. I'm sure everyone here now, everyone who is listening to us, would have heard already that their banks are being set ablaze because people are waiting to change their legitimate earning, and they are not able to do that. And transactions are now 100 times more difficult than usual because of the currency exchange that was not planned or implemented or executed properly. So Nigeria is a desperate place. And I'm worried that the coming election might just be the matches that lights the fuse on our explosives. I'm really, really worried, seriously. So I wish all of us were, I wish Nigeria were, but I'm holding my breath essentially.
But Paul, yes, so thank you so much for the analysis. So you talked about Operation Wete. I was saying that I was also born in that period, so I remember some of that Operation Wete and what it stands for. Mm-hmm. When rejected, they've been disenfranchised, they rejected
exactly.
They wanted their vote to count.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go back to the Arab Spring, right? Remember that agitation with the Arab Spring, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And in recent times, what's happening in the Ukraine, right? The Ukraine is standing up, and they're defending their country, right? Their sovereignty. Then you know what happened in Iran recently, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then also in Brazil, the recent election in Brazil. So Nigeria
is next on the line.
Wait, Paul. What we're hearing and seeing is that young people all over the world, they are tired. They're tired of their grandfather's generation that cannot identify with them or what their needs are, ruling them. They're tired of their voices not being heard. They're tired of being disenfranchised. They're tired of being oppressed, right? So in Nigeria, if people want change, I really share the view that this youth, no matter what, have to be the one to bring about this change that they want, starting with this election on Saturday. And I'm going to go to Mr. Oshikpito. I'm not sure if you have something that you want to add, but Paul, let me go to Honorable Yewole on that notion, because you've been around longer than we have, and young people are just tired.
Yeah.
They're just tired. So regardless of what happens with this election, young people must be able to rule. They must have a seat at the table, right? It's electoral representation. They want to have a say, because so far they have been shortchanged and they have been oppressed, and they continue to be oppressed and shortchanged and disenfranchised. What would you say to this, sir? And thank you for staying on.
Yeah, this is Dr. Oshikpito.
Hold on a second, sir. Mr. Yewole is talking about you. Unmute yourself, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I was talking off air.
Yeah,
I did say that I do not agree that anybody is being shortchanged, because the playing field is wide enough, it's large enough for everybody to play a role. Yes, the ideal thing is to look back. Really started. Yes, at the time of the wet year syndrome, there were issues connected with election, issues connected with the insincerity of purpose, issues connected with the selfishness, and that is what we are still in now. Yes, again, I agree that the youth should be encouraged to play an important role in the affairs of Nigeria. They are money to come with. The issue of sincerity of purpose is there to manage. We do need in Nigeria a manager for all the resources of this country. A president who is knowledgeable, a president who knows how to handle situations and how to make things work and happen for the common people. Now, if we were to go back to the wet year days, those were terrible days. The purpose why Chief Olowo installed free education was to make people understand their rights and their lefts and know which one to use when it was applicable. Where we are now, there are people who are highly knowledgeable. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes, there are people who are highly knowledgeable, and they should be allowed to play, important roles in the affairs of this nation. Saturday is just down the road. All the indications around here is that election will hold, but without, proper support to the administering body, I don't know how we are going to be able to do that. So that is worrisome. It's very, very worrisome. Are we going to vote on Saturday? If we are going to vote on Saturday, we want knowledgeable people and people who can make things happen to be elected into offices. That is my take on that.
Do you have any iota of confidence that those votes will be counted?
Do I have what?
I said, do you have any iota of confidence that people's vote will be counted fairly?
Well, with the beavers and logistics that INEC says it has put in place, I think things are going to be done electronically, and that the votes will count. I sincerely believe that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oshikpito, please go ahead. You wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I repeat, this is Dr. Oshikpito. And I want you to be aware that you're talking about the issue of youths. I remember not quite long, you still remember the issue of NSAS?
Yeah, NSAS, recently, yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So when the youths are protesting, you have the right to protest. But at some point, they said the hoodlums hijacked those protests, and it became something violent to the extent that bullets were fired, and it became a lot of fatalities and so on, to the extent that the Nigerian army, to the night, of which we also saw it through the media, CNN here. However, you see, most of these youths too, we can see recently now, because of this election coming up, we don't know the genuinity, but we know that there are a lot of homeless too in Nigeria, and some of them are youths, I mean, some of them are conductors that had nowhere to sleep, and they sleep in their buses.
Yeah.
And 1 a.m., the soldiers went around to start picking up all these kids, particularly in Lagos. You see a lot of over 200 kids. I mean, they are youths too, but I don't know what kind of job they do. And if it is true that all of them are criminals, or who knows. They are, I mean, I don't know if you're aware of that, right? Are you aware of that recently?
No, when that just happened recently?
Oh, yeah, in the past 1 week.
Oh.
Yeah. Over 200 youths in Lagos have been picked up. They picked them up around 1 a.m., 2 a.m. That's what they said, but they went to different areas. So, yeah.
Why?
They were targeted. The youths were targeted.
Oh, there you are.
They are not criminals. They are unemployed youths. The economy is run, Nigeria is run in such a way that there's a massive unemployment. So accusing people of being unemployed and therefore calling them criminal by extension,
well, that's human rights violation,
so
right?
nonsensical. It shows how dysfunction the Nigerian government is. They are not criminals. They were unemployed youth, and they bevy millions of them across Nigeria.
Okay, so who is addressing that? How can the government or the law enforcement, if there's such, pick up 200 youth, and what is the what is the status of that? Is anyone saying anything? Is the media on this case, or do we know what happened to those youths that were picked up?
In my location, I do what lawyers call pro bono cases. That when people are detained without trial or detained more than the Constitution allowed, I go to argue free cases for their release. So in every state, the Bar Association has a dedicated group of lawyers who argue for
we have been connected to
their release because they have not committed any offense. There's no warrant for their arrest. I'm sure that the bar is very often, if a detainee is released because a lawyer says so, the detainee still needs somebody to stand as a surety, or so that the detainee is released to that surety, or somebody who stands for their bail. My experience is that those who are detained like this most likely do not have relatives or people of means who can stand as surety, and so they remain in, as Fela used to say, remain in detention for months. So I don't know the particular case in Lagos, but it's very likely these are just unemployed people and not criminals at all.
Right.
So anyone in Lagos can approach the Bar Association there to see whether the lawyer doing free cases or call pro bono cases have intervened, and maybe urged intervention if that has not happened.
Yeah. So, Dr. Shikpito, thank you so much, Paul. So are you hearing anything from your network in Nigeria, family and friends, about what's really happening that they're experiencing, aside from the currency situation?
I mean, it's about the election too. I mean, some of them are skeptical. I mean, some of them are skeptical about Saturday. They rather stay home. Recently, I don't know if you see the video trending. There's a video trending now that's about 150 trucks, military trucks, getting into Lagos. I don't know if some other guys on this Zoom meeting had about that. So why sending 150 trucks to Lagos? So people are even scared of their lives. They don't know what will happen. So so that's why we're talking about the voting pattern. I mean, that if some will even go, they will rather stay home. And the situation in Nigeria is, it's just unimaginable.
And that's the problem. How can people stay home? Nothing would change if people don't vote. And we have the, Paul, and I want you to weigh in on this as well. Dr. Shikpito, we have these educated elite in Nigeria that are really well off, well educated. Some of them studied abroad.
Yeah.
Why do you think over the years this demographic have not been able to change Nigeria to what they desire? Why do they always, in my view, always just kind of look the other way and wait for someone else to make something happen?
Can I chime in?
Because Paul, what I'm making reference to is that if you look at representation in leadership, people that have been in government, Some of these people, this cabal, right? Look at the stock that these people came from, and it continues to be a succession of the same yoke of people. Why is that a country that has a lot of educated people, in a country that has diaspora in every professional field, very well educated people, why have these people been? I'm not saying they've been silent. Why have they not been able to make the kind of impact that they need to make?
I'm an example. I wish I was the senator. I'm educated enough, I'm informed enough, I'm enlightened enough, I'm passionate about Nigeria enough.
But Paul, you don't fit in that category, though, because I know that you're an advocate for change, an activist, and a grassroots person, an attorney that knows the rule of law, that wants to fight for the right of the people. So you're an educator, you're an elite, but you're not in the category of people I'm talking about. I'm talking about people that are really wealthy.
What I was going to say is that campaign requires a lot of money. Campaign requires a lot of, in other words, it's not just that you have policy ideas or that you are passionate. You have to have the money it takes, the gra it takes to be elected into office. A lot of the persons who may be interested in holding an elected position will not have the resources. I'm a salary person. I can't afford a campaign chest. I can't afford, and I'm sure there are many more people like that who cannot afford the resources it takes to do a campaign, whether for House of Assembly or Senate or governorship or whatever level. You need a lot of resources. So I think that's probably the disabler that a lot of people that cannot afford.
The demographic that I'm referring to, Paul, they have the resources. I'm not talking about people like you and I. So if people like you and I are interested and have the desire to represent society, to represent democracy, just like Mr. Adetunji is doing right now at OSUN State. So why isn't that funding readily available for people to back candidates that will really do right by this country? It is just,
sorry to cut
you. Please wait a second. It is perplexing. The international community are looking. Nigeria is a giant, right? Nigeria is the largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa. Nigeria has the most educated, Africans on the continent, maybe in the world. Why have not we been able to make this change, to transition to democracy and security and safety? Dr. Shikwiton, please go ahead.
Yeah, you're talking about this change. Let me tell you the truth, and I have to let you know. I'm always on ground. I've always been in Nigeria at least once or twice a year. You see, there was a time I've been to Abuja, made some presentations and so on, whereby nothing was implemented. You see, the structure in that country is also an issue, because when you look at it, when we have regional governments, in terms of Western region, Eastern region, there are competitions. When you see what Region A is doing, if you like what they're doing, that you also try to do something similar. You see, well, right now in Nigeria, there's nothing like competition, because we use something more or less like a unitary system. Okay, when you have, let me tell you, some people are talking about state police, state policing. Because of the politicians, we do this. Because of the politicians, we do that. The thing that happens, the population of Nigeria in 1960 or 66 is different from the population of now. The technology of that time is different from now. The crime rate is different from now. And, right now we have a lot of youths that graduates yearly, annually, no work. You do know that some of them too, they've turned to criminals. And what do you expect?
You're not investing in them, right?
Yeah.
They become thugs for hire because they are unemployed. They are desperate.
Yeah. So the system itself is an issue, because those guys staying in the Congress, in whatever, they are okay. Look at when Salaki was there. I don't care. When Salaki was there are certain issues, because they have you cannot be moved around between the executive and now they said this is the guy we want. So that everything that you put in the Senate or whatever in the Congress, you just pass it, right? And look at those guys in the Senate. Most of them have been here before 1999, and they all went back home.
Right.
Well, why did they make all these corrections you're talking about? You see, and that is lacking. I People have been, even the Christians, whatever, have been praying, prayer, but at some point, it looks to me, it looks beyond prayer.
Absolutely.
Now, yeah. So,
Absolutely. So, I mean, something has to give, because what I'm hearing is this same perplexion that, there's nothing, some people, they continue to hijack the system at the expense of every Nigerian. So when is this breakup going to happen? Because there cannot be succession of these same caliber of people that really want to, it's just about power. And that power, it's not really serving everyone's right or serving everyone's interest. That power is actually, violating people's rights, human rights, right? So where's the way forward here?
The way Nigeria is presently, let me tell you, the structure in Nigeria cannot take Nigeria to anywhere.
Well, okay. So what are you alluding to, though, when you talk about the structure? What needs to change?
What needs to be changed was the devolution of powers. Okay,
right?
The devolution of powers. The center is too strong. Okay, let me tell you, when somebody commits a crime in Lagos, like you at Port Authority, somebody brought in some containers or whatever that, and the police in Lagos, okay, now say, oh man, or whatever what you did on the customs, what you did is wrong, this and that. Ideally, if Lagos or whatever has its own police system, that guy will be tried and charged there. But right now, when they are tried and charged, then they will now call Abuja. When they now call Abuja, the same guy from Abuja will now call Lagos that, please release that guy. You see, that is the unitary system I'm talking about. That is part of the structure.
That needs to be dismantled.
It needs to be broken.
It needs to be. So how isn't the best way to do that through the ballot?
No, that has failed, man. That can work in Nigeria.
So what are you recommending? If
what I'm recommending, vote, let me tell you, let me be fair.
If you cannot vote interest, if you can't vote for change.
What I'm recommending is, if the Congress, now everything they're saying is the Congress. I mean, when I say Congress, National Assembly. If the National Assembly cannot do anything, right, then at the end of the day, to be sincere, it's going to turn into a revolution. It's going to turn, because now people are being pushed to the wall. You know what they call Jackpot now, right?
Yeah, Jackpot, yeah.
That time. Jackpot, people are, the youths are getting away. That I prefer to go and die whatever outside Nigeria just to survive one way or the other. It's now getting to Jackpot. There was nothing like that before. That is just Jackpot. It's just part of it. There are, at some point, some people that cannot even Jackpot will not turn to something else. Even the leaders in Nigeria, now they will just be going to their house structure and look, we want this, we want that. And all these leaders, they already had visas. Their children are not there, and those that are there, they already had visas at hand. If anything happens now, they're going to run. They're ready.
But what about, okay, Paul, from what Dr. Chikwito is saying now, there's a need for decentralization. We understand that. And this system has now worked and it's not working. And if democracy, it's not going to work. So what is a Paul? There's this people are pushing, some people are talking about a referendum. Paul, what are you thinking?
My position remains the same. Remain the same. I am in favor of due process and rule of law. I'm in favor of democracy. We should make democracy work. We are no worse than citizens of other nations where democracy has worked. There's no reason why democracy should not work in Nigeria, really. So it ends there, that the fact that Nigeria should be able to make democracy work and so-called dividends of democracy, if the citizens see that democracy is beneficial to them, they will defend democracy to the death.
But the people are not allowed to vote. Their votes are not being counted. They continue to be disenfranchised. So you're talking about democracy, and I totally agree with you. The rule of law, by fighting by the ballot, the bullet of the ballot for me is a way to go. But when people are not allowed to implement the change that they want, talk about revolution, yes. Dr. Chikwito. So
it was the case. That's why we mentioned words here before. I'll remind you of Omobori. I will remind you of persons who try to hijack legitimate, free and fair election. What happened to them, or how we got here? That if the voters, if the electorate are enlightened to their best interest, and after election they see their wishes have been hijacked, there's a way that reaction can be had so that the thieves of the ballot boxes will not live to benefit from their stolen goods. We should insist that democracy is all there is. There's no alternative to it. If the political class become aware that the voters will not accept anything else, the voters will not be paid pennies instead of their best interests. Because this is what happened in Nigeria. The voters are given 2 kobo in place of what they are really rightly entitled: health, wealth, and happiness. You understand? So if the voters are sensitized to the effect that don't allow yourself to be bribed, don't allow your birthright to be stolen from you by the politicians who have no policy or program to benefit you, I think the voters will stay to protect their ballot. That's what needs to happen here. I'm not an advocate of military regime or alternative government.
Absolutely
I insist
not,
democracy, rule of law, due process must triumph in Nigeria, must succeed in Nigeria. There's no reason not to. As you mentioned earlier, Nigerians are about the most educated group of persons on earth. There's no reason why Nigeria, with our enlightenment, with our education, with our travel, can't ensure or insist that democracy work in Nigeria. It will work. It must work. We should all insist.
Yeah, but what about the role of the international community in this case? Paul, and I hear you, and I share your sentiments and your thinking. I mean, because I know you for many years. We think alike on many levels, but it's not that simple. If you look around the world and you look at, I don't want to bring Haiti into this situation, and Haiti is a classic case of a failed state where the international community would not just allow Haiti to breathe, especially the United States of America. So Nigeria is not just operating on its own, right? The international community has, they have a say. And I'm not saying that, honestly, I'm not saying that they're creating havoc in Nigeria. I mean, maybe in some ways, but I'm saying that they don't want Nigeria to dissolve into chaos, right? They're very aware of what's going on. But at the same time, though, when you look at the current situation that was just implemented in this election period, which is suspicious, look at the havoc that's already creating by people not being able to get to the polls. People that want to go to their own state to vote can't vote. People can't get their ballot cards or whatever the case might be. So as you're talking about democracy, which is the only way, but this democracy itself, the structure, it's being disrupted. This democratic structure that will allow people to vote fairly, a fair, election, it's being disrupted right now, Paul.
I agree with you. Here, I'm aware that what happens in Nigeria is not limited to what Nigerians want. They are interlopers. They are outsiders who are interfering in our national affairs. But here's the thing. Nigeria has 200 million people or more. Cuba, on the other hand, has less than 20 million people. I'm making the point that if Cuba can withstand outside interference, if Cuba with less resources than Nigeria, less population than Nigeria, less doctors or educated people than Nigeria, why is it that Nigeria can't? What it requires is leadership. If you have a passionate person, I go back again, take no offense.
You can talk about leadership, Paul. The leadership, there are candidates till date that are ready to change the trajectory of their country for the best, but they're not allowed to take
we should stand with whoever we determine nationwide is standing for the best of Nigeria's future, the best of Nigeria's best interest. We should stand by that candidate until the cows come home. If let's say Peter Obi, for example, if it is acknowledged, if it's unanimous that this is the best candidate, we should ensure that all those who support him go to the polls. And if when the ballots are counted, we suspect fraud,
it's been known. We revive Operation Watch. We punish that that if the electorate is enlightened enough to know their best interest, and they know they have chosen a candidate to pursue that best interest passionately. Again, I go back to Awolowo. If you see a candidate who knows what he wants to do for the nation, and you know that that candidate is being subverted.
Okay.
line up, support him, defend the mandate, prevent him from being sidelined or used.
You're breaking. Honorable Oyewole, you wanted to say?
That's what I'm saying. So it's really up to all of us, especially those of us on ground, to ensure that the electorate know what they stand to benefit when a good president is elected, and when, or the on the other hand, if the votes are stolen. Well, okay, can you hear me? It's
Okay,
frustrating.
Paul, okay, go ahead, sir. You wanted to add to this. Go ahead. Honorable Oyewole, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yes, I was going to.
I can't hear you.
But yeah, it's traveling. It's in traffic, and again, here is Nigeria with the connectivity issue. That's
fluctuating network. Yeah.
Yeah. So while we're waiting for him, while we're waiting for him to connect again, Paul, you kept emphasizing the need for, for democracy. I mean, for the right candidate, and that democracy should be allowed to win. Yeah, we understand that. As Mr. Dr. Oshipiton said earlier, there's a need to decentralize, to deconstruct these, this structure, this cabal that hasn't been working for everyone. So in the last, so for instance, if Peter Obi wins, because he's getting a lot of traction in the international community and in Nigeria, and a lot of people are rooting for Peter Obi because is the change that they envision, at least someone different on the platform that's a new how do I put it?
That is not one of the recycled garbage.
So what makes you think that they will allow Peter Obi to rule the way we're talking about? How is he going to be able to bring this equity, to bring this democracy and fairness to people that voted for him? I mean, because the structure is already in place. The fact that Peter Obi is running, and even if he won or wins rather, does that mean that the change that we're looking for is actually possible?
I believe so. The reason I believe that is that
hold on. Go ahead, sir, because we're waiting.
I lost connection there.
Yes, go ahead. You wanted to say something.
Yes. Let this discussion take charge by considering troublemakers. And the people that I mean to be troublemakers are those who make us hungry, because they know once there is hunger in the land, when there's no money, to spend, people, cannot think rationally. And therefore, those who believe that they are the owners of Nigeria, because there is still a group that believes that they are the owners of Nigeria, and they are very, very much at work. So, will they allow Peter Obi to work? Will they allow Tinubu to operate? Will they even allow Atiku himself to be free as president of Nigeria? There are some people who believe that they own this country, and it is only their biddings that must be adhered to. In addition to that, we must know that there is foreign influence in everything that happens around here, because the president is even chosen before the election day. And that is where the foreign intervention, we believe, they tinker with things around here and make things to go the way they want. How can we remove ourselves from all of these machinations?
Thank you.
We need to look at that. As I said earlier on, I don't know if you heard me, I'm playing the devil's advocate. We want Saturday to go properly. We want election to work out, and we want the right person to win. But are we set for it? If you are here, as I'm talking to you, I mean, Lagos is bumper to bumper as we normally have it.
Right.
And there is little or no fuel in circulation, as it were. No money at all, because banks are closed and the transfers are not even going. So we can take a minute to discuss this, these salient issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, going back, Paul, going back to what Dr. Shikweton said, and I want, Honorable Oyewole to listen to this as well, that there is a need for decentralization of government, right? Because that's important in a democracy.
Oh, yes.
If power is concentrated in
Oh,
the hands
yes.
of a few, then it just doesn't trickle down. That's not what it's supposed to be. There has to be checks and balances, and there needs to be decentralization of power, electoral, democracy, and so on. How do we achieve that?
Yes.
And that's the conversation we need to be having now and after this election. That's about, because even if Peter Obi wins or whoever wins, I don't believe there will be that change because the structure is still in place.
Well, I agree with you, but here's the thing. You and I know that in New York, there's a police department that's dedicated only to the subway, that the transportation system, train system have their own police department.
Right.
In the same way, you have different versions of policing in New York or all over the United States. I'm saying that to make the point that central command or control command, as is done in Nigeria, is ineffective and inefficient. You have the Inspector General of Police in Abuja. He doesn't know the local conditions here. And often, a man who is not from a particular state, let's say a guy from Maiduguri, is hired to be the Commissioner of Police in Lagos. He doesn't know the culture of Lagos. He doesn't know the dialect of different neighborhoods in Lagos. And so community policing is actually non-existent in that regard. Whereas good policing requires community policing so that police commissioner and his inspectors or chief of stations or precincts will go to the bar and say, look, we want peace here. We are partners in progress, partner in a crime-free Lagos. Bale, we want you to tell us who the troublemakers are in your neighborhood, or who we should look for, or where we need to patrol more than the other neighborhood. So the central command of Nigerian policing is part of the crime problem and kidnapping and all of that. Every community in Nigeria knows who the troublemakers are, who the usual derelicts are. So if policing is decentralized so that each locality is able to hire its police, and there will be people who are familiar with the terrain. Imagine if you hire somebody from a landlocked community to go be a police officer in the riverine area. You are doing the wrong thing. He's afraid of water to begin with. And each time there's a crime or a report of crime, you'll be maybe careful or afraid to approach the neighborhood because it's over water. I'm using that to illustrate the fact that community policing requires familiarity with the people, with the neighborhood, with the nooks and crannies where you're about to police. And policing needs to be more friendly to Nigerians than the way it currently is. Most Nigerians see police as an occupation force, even when they are available at all. So that needs to change. And that means decentralization of authority from Inspector General at the Federal Capital Territory.
Thank you, Paul. So I wanted to, one second, I wanted to add something to that. Paul, I wrote a piece recently, and I was talking about definitely, Nigeria is at a breaking point. It's a failed state it's an emergency state at this point. And definitely democracy is the way to go. But what I was saying is that there is going to be an evolution, a revolution, or negotiation, right? It's either going to be one of the three. And I would hope that democracy wins, that we have an evolution, preferably, or negotiation. But can you guys, any of you speak to that? What do you think is likely? There's definitely a need for decentralization. There has to be, but what do you say to what I am, proposing?
The thing is that the Nigerian police already exist. I think the hiring process needs to recognize the importance of officers being familiar with the locality. So if a police inspector for a precinct or station is from the locality or familiar with the locality, even though the commissioner is from, let's say, for example, that you hire people from Bagada, Ikorodu, Surulere to be the foot soldier. The commissioner of police for Lagos State might be from Ondo. But those precinct commanders or DPO divisional police officer or inspector of police should be from the locality because they are familiar with the people and terrain. Even though they take instruction from their police commissioner, who happen to be from Ekiti or Ondo, they feed information to the commissioner. So policing will be community policing. And when you know your terrain, whether you're a soldier or police, you are better able to factor. You're a cab driver. You can't be a good cab driver if you don't know the locality. Same way, if you're a police officer, if you don't know the locality, the culture, the people, the chiefs and all of that, or pastors, you can't function well. So the fact that Nigerian police is command and control from Abuja is part of law enforcement problem. They don't know who they are saying from. Everybody know that guy from so and so. So they.
I see what you're saying. In terms of
an occupation force.
But in terms of decentralization, you're talking about the policing system and structures, right? But I'm even talking about the larger government, that regardless of who wins, and how. I mean, right now, I don't see any possibility of deconstructing this system the way it is now. How do we begin to do that? You know, under democracy, you know, if let's say Peter Obi wins or whoever wins, I mean, don't they have to first understand that it's a need to deconstruct this cabal system? I mean, is it even possible to do that? Because again, as I said, the international powers have a hand in what happens in Africa and also in Nigeria. Do they wish for the decentralization of this system, this stronghold that's been choking Nigerians up to date? I think that's the position that.
Can I come in?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. For instance, let me tell you something. You know, we're talking about decentralization, and Paul was hammering on, the police aspect. That's just one. You understand? Look at the economy. Let me tell you, from my own profession, look at the economy in the transportation sector. You see a lot of containers going from Lagos. Most of these containers goes to the eastern part of Nigeria. No, it goes everywhere, but the eastern part of Nigeria in terms of importations, goods, you know, when you go to Onitsha, you can see, or to Aba, okay, freight movement is very, very important. Can you tell me why we cannot have a west-east route in Nigeria? Since 1800s that we have railways in Nigeria. The Uyghurs, when they came, their own interest was the local products down to the seaports, right? They first started from Ibadan, to Abeokuta, then down there. Now, at our own level, why can we not have east-west rail system to move all these containers? You understand? But the point is now, somebody else said, even the incumbent, and quotes me, said, okay, you have cousins, right? In Niger Republic. You have cousins. Not Nigerians, but because they are cousins. So now you can make it now aligned to the extent that they now borrowed money from China to now construct a rail line to Maradi in Niger Republic. So what? Because they said for trade, for economic trade, for this and that. That's trade international. But the trade within, which can really sustain and give us more money, is not an interest. Are you kidding me? And Nigerians are looking at that. No, that is another problem. That's another issue. You understand? That is an issue.
It's not that they don't recognize.
I get you. That is like, it's a charity begins abroad. That you made the point that there should be train connection, goods train, passenger train connection to all the states in the federation before you worry about it. Can you hear me now? I was saying that. Okay, I was saying that the joke is charity begins abroad instead of charity beginning at home. There should be train connection, goods train, passenger train to every state in Nigeria before we start to worry about train connection to Niger or to Chad or to anywhere else outside Nigeria. The goods and services and people should be efficiently transported within Nigeria, and that will expand the economy 1,000-fold. So the concentration, the priority should be how to extend train service to every state capital or to the nooks and crannies of Nigeria to move people, to move goods. And not, it's a misplacement of priority and waste of resources to connect Niger before and Niger Republic before you connect Niger State.
But isn't that deliberate? Isn't that deliberate anyway? It's not like it's an error. There's the reason behind that.
Because the guy, because the man in charge is not patriotic, it's not Nigeria centric. If he was, he would make Nigeria his priority. And which makes the point about who becomes the leader. If who becomes president by Saturday is a man with an agenda, he comes and hits the ground running. Of course, he will make Nigeria a priority. He will not make such stupid mistake of connecting Chad before he connects Abeokuta or Owerri or Maiduguri. So you have to have the passion, you have to have the agenda, which is why I hope I don't offend you guys. I keep talking about 4 cardinal program. If you have an agenda, if you come ready, you hit the ground running, you will do well. Any Nigerian president, you don't have to do everything yourself. Of course, you consult the experts in transportation, in medicine, in law, in economy, and transportation, everything. But what we have in is that people who don't have such passion always want to be in our political class, and they are.
Okay, Honorable, thank you, Paul. Honorable, you wanted to add something to that, and we're going to wrap up in about 5 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I am excited. I'm excited because in the past few minutes, I've been hearing everybody talk about restructuring. I think the issue of restructuring is something that needs to be given utmost attention by the system. We cannot continue this way. Nigeria is a very large territory with a large population to manage. If we can empower the states, empower the regions, and make the center to be loose, I think we'll benefit much more from it. And that is the direction that we are likely to go in the next dispensation. Based on some talks that I've been participating in, we would want the government to look seriously at restructuring the system. Also, we cannot end this conversation without looking at the issue of constitution. The Constitution of Nigeria, as it was drafted in 1999, is still not acceptable to generality of Nigerians. That also is a bottleneck that we need to either crack, break, or or go through with. With the election hold on Saturday, a recurrent question. But where it goes, where it holds, and where a leader emerges, the new manager, needs to understand the system that we need to be restructured. We are too large, we are too many. And also, we need to look at the constitution. We may want to discuss that before we close this discussion. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Partial to this conversation about the constitution. Nigeria does need several constitutional amendments. The better a constitution is if it's amended to reflect the way we live, to reflect the current state of affairs in Nigeria. So a constitutional amendment can be proposed by a senator or any lawmaker, a governor, or the president. So a robust, a vigorous legislature should be able to do that. There will be a call for submission of suggestions or submission of papers or recommendation for what sections of the Constitution need to be amended. I would, for instance, want a constitutional amendment that requires a Nigerian to be a citizen of whatever locality he lives. So if you were born in Ekiti, but now you live in Sokoto State, you are a citizen of Sokoto State, no questions asked. I would like such thing to happen. It would make for a better Nigeria.
Well, aren't you
where you are?
Be a citizen of Nigeria, supposed to be a citizen of Sokoto State, right?
No,
I'm saying that if you're already a citizen of Nigeria,
if you want to run to the senator from Sokoto State,
I see what you're saying.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
A citizen of, okay, what I'm saying is that you can't. Okay, currently Nigerians are not able to travel with their citizenship. My citizenship of being from Ekiti State expires if I want to run for office in Borno State or Anambra. I'm certainly not a citizen with full faith and credit. I'm certainly not 100% citizen. That's what I'm referring to, that you can be from Hawaii and be president of the United States. You can be from Hawaii and be a mayor in New York. Whereas in Nigeria, you cannot be from Yenangoa and seek to be a mayor in Abeokuta. it won't happen. So that should change. That should be such a major constitutional amendment. A Nigerian should feel at home and feel full citizenship wherever he or she is in Nigeria. Right to work, right to be elected, right to vote.
Thank you. You know, this is really a really necessary conversation, and I'm so grateful that I have you gentlemen that are, you know, more knowledgeable in some area than I am, and this is why we're having this conversation. But I really want to continue this another time. And you know, Honorable Yewole, you remember we were talking about, and Paul, I want you to listen to this also, Dr. Shikwiton. So this Beyond Remittance Group, which Honorable Yewole is our chair, a board chair in Nigeria, the idea is that what can we do beyond remittance, right? Beyond just sending money home, especially those of us that have been here for 40 years, right? So we are proposing part of what Beyond Remittance is looking to do, and it's already in the planning process, is that every year, starting in 2024 rather, God, I hope not 2014, 2024, to go home and start a symposium. We're looking to hold symposium sessions at University of Lagos, Abeokuta. I'm not sure what institution Abeokuta, but also Obafemi Awolowo University in Ife, and also Bayelsa. I mean, Paul, you are in Bayelsa.
In Bayelsa, yeah.
So let me. So the idea of the reasoning and the purpose of this symposium is to engage in conversations like this, right? Let's begin a conversation on the Constitution of Nigeria. Let's begin a conversation on decentralization. Let's begin a conversation on reconstruction. Let's bring experts to the table and the people in a forum where we can begin this meaningful conversation to the future, to really realize the change that we want, and the change that Nigerian youth also want. I think this is, you talk about transportation system, you know, this is very salient issues that we want to tackle in depth, and that's why we're going to start that symposium in 2014. Invite some, you know, scholars.
2024.
I keep saying 2024.
You said this again.
I think I want to be young. I think that's what it is. It's not even just, yeah. I want it to be 2014. That would be like that could cut off like 20 years out of my age or something. Anyhow, so we want to start these really conversation and bring Nigerian professors that have taught at the university.
Come to my campus.
We will. So you're there.
Students
we will definitely host one there. So we have all these professors, Nigerian professors at the university across the world, the largest in Europe and also in America, that are in our age bracket or a little younger. Let's bring them back to engage in these and begin to explore a process of how, let's revisit the Constitution at that.
Yeah.
You know, and then look at how
come tell our local people how the world works, and how the whole world is waiting for us, and we are
reconstruction, right? Reconstruction and decentralization. We want to have all that conversation. We also want to have a report. We want to have a white paper from these discussions, right? So when we, yes. I mean, Paul, you know how many years you and I have gone to the United Nations? I mean, we go there every year for the General Assembly UNGA for the last 30 years. But this conversation that we're having here, it's not being had at the United Nations or at the General Assembly every year. We want to move this conversation to those platforms so that the international community, these agencies that are doing research, publishing undesirable report on Nigeria, they can hear the voices of Nigerians and what we want. We need to engage them here at the United Nations. We also have to do that in Nigeria so that we produce a white paper and we begin to really, detail.
Make our ideas count.
Yeah, you produce content on this idea of what we want and then see, what happens from there. This needs to be explored further, and we need to bring experts to the table, mostly Nigerians, and see where we go from here. This has been really wonderful, and I really appreciate you all coming on. And I, of course, the three of you that are left here are closely part of my network, and I will definitely make sure that you're part of this conversation as we go forward, so that we can come up with something tangible. So we wish Nigeria all the best on Saturday. And on that note, Yeah, Boba Gunwa Oyewole, I would like you to please say some few words of prayers in whichever way, you know, so that the ancestors can bless us and let this country just, you know, continue to prosper the way it's meant to.
I will pray the American prayer.
Why
and
the
I
American
say, God
prayer?
bless Nigeria.
Oh no, we don't.
God bless Nigeria, because God is universal.
Yes, of course.
There is no American that says anything to the contrary. You always say, God bless America. May the good Lord of the universe bless Nigeria.
Amen.
Choose a leader for us.
Amen.
Teach us to do things correctly so that we can be a solid part of the community of nations. I also want to express my appreciation to have been part of this, even though traffic connection has been
I know you've been in the car all the time. Yes.
Has been poor, has been off and on. But then I associate myself with all the things that have been discussed, and I hope that in future we'll be able to have better conversation on this issue of moving Nigeria forward. Thank you so very much. God bless you all.
Thank you. Thank
you too.
Anyone else? You want any closing thoughts, and we should just leave it here?
I guess this is good enough.
Yeah, Dr. Shikpito.
There's blue sky everywhere. There's God everywhere.
I know you struggled about all these years. You're still struggling. At least try.
I wish I was in Lagos. So
I know. No, we're going to be in Lagos soon. I mean, this year I'm coming. Dr. Shikpito, any closing thoughts? We should just leave it here.
Well, I wouldn't say much, but well, this is a step in the right direction. But the thing is that when Paul was talking about the Constitution, as a matter of fact, Nigeria is like nations in a nation. Nigeria is a case study. Yeah, it's difficult to compare it with United States. When somebody already said he has a cousin in Niger Republic, so and the leader of a country. So it's so tough to say I was born in Lagos and I can go to photo and say they should vote for me. That one will be the last in that constitution amendment, I bet you. Or people that drink beer in Lagos, our VAT now. You take our VAT to Kano, and when they sell beer in Kano, you break all the bottles. Haram. Nothing else. So, that's just my own point regarding that constitution. But many other things will be,
We will continue the conversation.
The separation of church and state. So,
right.
If you don't want to drink beer, go in your house. Me, I want to drink. Leave me alone.
I appreciate your time, and please stay safe in Nigeria. Get home safely, Honorable Yewale. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed.
I'll be in touch. Thank you.
I thank you too.
Right.
All right, bye.
Everyone stay safe, yeah.
Bye.